Yeah. You're over there where DeAndre was, or the Soul Children.
Yep.
Yeah, because I
Yep.
saw DeAndre. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And I have him up just so that you know.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'll open up the Facebook and I'll check the levels.
No worry, honey. I'm just letting you know where I am, okay? Because sometimes
No, thank you.
you're way ahead of me. So I'm always just letting you know where I am. Oh, wow. Do you think it's going to be a hot summer, Stephen?
I hope so.
Oh!
It's my desire. My heart's desire.
Well, you know what? I got to get my clothes.
That will sound
together.
great.
Okay, thank you. Because my clothes, oh. I mean, I can't wear anything now. My mother was telling me something she said, this is ill-fitted. I said, thank you, Mom. Well, I'm going to tell you. Oh, man. I said, okay. Thank you. Got it. Okay. Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, can you turn the radio up, hon? I just want to make sure that I'm still connected.
Is that better?
Just up a little bit more. I can't hear anything. Just no, I still can't hear anything. Okay, still can't hear anything. Okay. Still can't hear anything. Is that a problem at the station?
I don't think so. I'm turning everything on and off just to make sure.
I can hear it. It's too. Oh, you know what? It's way back in the mix now. Can you turn it up a little bit louder? I just need to know that the station is still there. Okay.
The future
Okay,
depends on
thank you,
teachers.
thank you.
Every day,
helps
teachers
me a
are
lot.
shaping our tomorrows, starting their students on journeys that will change the
How much
course
time
of
do we
history.
have?
Right now, in a classroom somewhere,
We have about 3 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
there's a teacher inspiring
Thank
a
you.
future scientist who will make preventing pandemics their life's work, sharpening the mind of an aspiring environmentalist who will help combat climate change, and generating possibilities for a student who will be the first in their family to graduate college. It all starts with teachers who meet challenges with creativity, who reinvent education for the future, who work towards a school system that lifts up every child, regardless of race, income, or zip code, and to enable the full potential of our students, our communities, and our country. Explore a career that leaves a legacy you can be proud
Pastor
of.
Thurston?
Shape the future. Teach.
Yeah.
Learn
You know,
more
I
and
need
receive
to
free
call me
support
today.
at teach.org.
Because I had a couple of questions I needed to ask you.
Hi, I'm Avina.
Okay,
I'm
sounds
7
good.
years old and I'm blind. I love
No problem.
gymnastics,
Yeah.
piano, public
there was some preacher observations that were made.
Okay.
And I'd love to get your feedback.
Sounds good.
You know, presentation. There's so much that we learned in the church, and I don't think we should ever take that for granted. You know, so much that we learn
Yes.
that is
Yes, ma'am.
that is invaluable. It's invaluable.
We have 1 minute.
Okay, perfect. Let's have a great show.
Let's have an awesome show.
Amen to that.
And together, we can make a difference. Take on.
10 seconds.
Okay.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is a joy to be here on Tuesday, May 16th, 2023, one day after the swearing in of Brandon Johnson. What did you think about this? Did anyone watch it on television? Pastor Stephen Thurston and I were there. It was fantastic. And it was just a day that was just full of so many possibilities. So many people felt so good walking away from yesterday. And Karen Clark shared was fantastic. The Soul Children of Chicago, this magnificent orchestra. It was just the dancers, the young woman who sang the national anthem, she was fantastic. It was a wonderful, 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 wonderful event. Many people walked away feeling so inspired. What about you? And then, of course, after we watched the swearing in of the alders from the 50 wards of Chicago, we then saw the mayor sign executive orders. He went right to work. So what do you expect from this administration? What do you want to see from this administration? What do you need the Johnson administration to do? Now it's his turn. Now it is his turn. So now, what are you expecting? And what are you needing to do to help him help you? Because that's really what it comes down to, everybody. So I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. I want to hear, give me some feedback today. Call me at 773-763-WCPT, and I want you to join us here on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and, of course, the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. Thank you. More and more of you are joining. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please join me over there. Not the Santita Jackson page. That's a landing page. I can't accept any friends there. And in fact, they're tossing people off. Please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook and go to @SantitaJ. That is where I need you to go on Twitter, @SantitaJ, @SantitaJ. Everybody, please become my friend on Twitter, @SantitaJ. And then the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And meet my morning stars over here on the Santita Jackson YouTube channel and on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Andre and Daryl and Raphael, hey y'all, and Jewel up there in New York, and Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia. Don't ever forget that. Joyce, how you doing? Sending you all so much love today. Barbara Bacon from holding it up for Oak Park, Illinois. Max in Myrick in D.C. sending you all so much love. Kenneth Rush, how you doing? Grand rising to you. Mark, hey, you and Lorraine sending y'all so much love. Call me at 773-763-9278. What do you make of this new Johnson administration? Yes, it's a day old, but now the work has begun. He's already signed 4 executive orders. Migrants, got to take care of them. There's so much that's going on. And then we're going to be talking today with the young woman who she was speaking on behalf of Indigenous people. Now, of course, we are on Indigenous land, and I want to talk with her about what she was meaning to say. She was interrupted several times by protesters, but that must mean she must be doing something right, because that's what happens. My father said, if people only say good things about you, you are not doing something. So let's get right to it, everybody. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 77 degrees, partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 83 degrees and sunny. In the NBA, the finals are June 1st. Through June 18th, possibly. Boston, the Lakers and the Nuggets will be playing tonight. The Heat and the Celtics will be playing tomorrow. Who do you think is going to be in the finals? Who? I can't believe the Warriors aren't there. Oh my gosh, in the NHL. Well, we have got the Stars and the Golden Knights. Finally that trophy, that Stanley Cup trophy. Well, you know, it's amazing all the things that come up at this time of year. Special counsel John Durham released his final report on Monday, in which he cast doubt about the FBI's decision to launch a full investigation into connections between Donald Trump's campaign and Russia during the 2016 election in a 300-page plus report. The Trump administration appointee determined that the FBI also used, quote, raw, unanalyzed, and uncorroborated intelligence, close quote, to launch the investigation, but used a different standard when weighing concerns about alleged election interference regarding Hillary Clinton's campaign. The teenage gunman who killed 3 people and wounded 6 others in Farmington, New Mexico on Monday appeared to target victims randomly and used at least 3 guns in the attack, including an AR-15 style rifle, according to the police. The 18-year-old gunman roamed through the neighborhood and, quote, randomly fired at whoever entered his head to shoot at, close quote. That is from the police, including houses and cars, before police arrived and fatally shot him. I wish they would give us the names and the backgrounds of these people who commit these acts. You need to find out who they are and what shaped them. Many of them have had military training. Maybe we need to watch that. Junior ROTC, on and on and on and on. Some of them have been kicked out of the military because of mental health issues or just bad behavior. So let's talk about that. What do you think? I want you to let me know. Do you think we should know the names and the backgrounds of these people who commit these heinous acts? Call me at 773-763-9278. This is supposed to be good news, everybody. I want to know if you're feeling it. I'm not seeing it at the pumps on the south side, but they say gas is almost $1 cheaper than 1 year ago when prices were racing toward $5 a gallon. The national average currently stands at $3.53 a gallon, according to AAA. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen reaffirmed yesterday that it's likely the U.S. could default on its debt as early as June 1st if Congress doesn't act soon. She wrote to House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, and I quote, "We have learned from past debt limit impasses that waiting until the last minute to suspend or increase the debt limit can cause serious harm to business and consumer confidence, raise short-term borrowing costs for taxpayers, and negatively impact the credit rating of the United States," close quote. This, of course, as American debt has surpassed $17 trillion. This is the highest personal debt of Americans in our history. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Pastor Stephen Thurston was at the inauguration yesterday. Of course, he's from New Covenant Missionary Baptist Church. We were with your former pastor, of course, Reverend James Meeks. He is the former teaching pastor from Salem Baptist Church, the House of Hope. I'm so glad that you're at this family church, that you, New Covenant, you all have held that pastorate for, that pulpit for more than almost 100 years. We've not really seen that in the history of Black America. And so you all are to be commended for that. I want you to tell me just very quickly, what did you think of the inauguration?
It was very inspiring. Brandon nailed it in terms of his speech, covering all the bases, speaking to the people. He's such an amazing speaker at meeting his audience right where they are, connecting with them. And then those who presented, it represented the city of Chicago. He's been talked about as like Joseph having a coat of many colors. He mentioned that in the speech the other day at the minister's breakfast. And he brought all the colors of Chicago into that program. And so it was amazing to see the energy was there. I mean, you left, if you didn't leave feeling inspired, something's wrong with your soul, your mind, and your body. Just the energy of the people there and the excitement that he infused into people's hearts and minds, it was an amazing experience. I'm glad he had been a part of history because I believe yesterday was a historic moment for the city of Chicago.
And I think it was for everybody, because one of the things that you're seeing is, he's from the West Side. He still lives in the Austin neighborhood. And you see, I remember when Reverend was running for president, he said, yes, I'm a Black man, I'm a Black candidate, and but this is America's campaign. What you're seeing is America from my perspective, from a bottom-up perspective. And I think that is what you saw yesterday when you saw the indigenous, when you saw the Jew, when you saw the Muslim, when you saw all of these people coming together and in affirmation of this candidacy. Because we're all everything. When you looked at that stage and when you looked in the audience, you saw us all. And when you see us all, you see us in each other. So, now he's signed 4 executive orders. Let's get to it. We've got to get to work, everybody. Got to get to work. So now I just want to hear from you because I need some good news today. Because, I come home and then, okay, there's a shooting in New Mexico. I mean, come on. It's just like, just give me a break. And Dawn O'Leary from Minneapolis, sending you much love, girl. All right.
Let's help people from a relationship lens this morning recognize the good news is that you can survive the silent treatment. I know some people can relate to this already.
Well, I'm great at it.
Relationships.
I'm great at giving. Look, I own up to my crazy, okay?
You got to own it, yes.
Own it.
On which that's the first step to recovery, owning it. All of our relationships have their ebbs and flows, their high moments and their low moments. And there will be times when you love each other and times when you can't stand one another. Times when you can't wait to talk to them and times when you don't really have much to say to one another. And it's these silent moments that I really want to address. When expectations aren't met and tensions flare, arguments or heated discussions ensue, and as a result, you might find yourself on the receiving end of a cold shoulder. And for some, the silent treatment is a convenient way to opt out of conversation or situation that you're over. For others, this silence is a healthy approach, and they require some time and some space to process things and cool down before they can engage in meaningful conversation to address the issue at hand. Now, from a psychological lens, flooding is often at play when tensions are high. Some of you are saying, well, Stephen, what's flooding? Flooding is a term that's used to describe what happens when happens within our bodies when intense thoughts and feelings or sensations are too much for us to integrate in that moment. It's adrenaline that's pouring into your system, and in moments of conflict, it triggers a fight or flight response. So the silent treatment can actually be a helpful tool. But here's the problem. The other person involved often views the silence as unbearable and immature, because for them, being ignored and isolated from conversation or engagement, it actually creates more contention. Here's what they're thinking. Why can't we just talk? Why can't you just work things out with me right now? The silence is just keeping us from finding the real solution to the problem that's affecting us the most. Well, Stephen, can you help me to understand why my partner, why my significant other, why my mate chooses to engage the silent treatment with me, especially when they know it doesn't sit well with me? That's a great question. I sure can. Let me give you 3 quick things to consider. Number 1, men and women respond to conflict differently. I like to say it this way, Santita. Men are like waffles and women are like spaghetti.
Ooh.
For men, we're either going to do one of 2 things. We're either going to shut down or we're going to go off. Women, however, like to talk things through. You like to ask connected questions and then connect the dots. So number 1, men and women, we just respond different to conflict. Number 2, it can be a form of self-protection. When you feel slighted, when you feel attacked, when you feel hurt, you can shut down. I know this is my response often. And then number 3, it can be an unhealthy way to gain control or to gain power over the other person. It's connected to emotional abuse and manipulation. So those are 3 quick things to consider when your significant other shuts down on you. So the next question you might have is, well, how should I respond to the silent treatment? Great question again. Here's a couple of suggestions. Number 1, don't assume you know the reason for this silent treatment. Assumptions can cause defensiveness, anger, and extended silence. So you want to try to avoid trying to figure out what your partner is thinking. What I want you to do is express your need or your desire to communicate and suggest a time frame in which the 2 of you can come back to the table. You got this cooling off period where you pause and you reflect upon what led to the episode, but make it clear, all right, you can be silent with me, but this can only last for about 24 hours, and then we're coming back to the table to talk about it. Second suggestion, ask yourself. It sounds like you've been convicted over there, Santita. Number 2, ask yourself if this boils down to a personality thing. We do have introverts that sometimes connect with extroverts, and introverts need time to process our emotions, especially when things get intense or we feel like we've been attacked or insulted in some way. We need our time. Number 3, express your feelings about the experience. Compassionately acknowledge what you're feeling without accusations or hostile language. Let me show you how to frame it. Listen, I know I've been quiet lately, or I've noticed a shift in our communication since X happened. Or when you ignore me because you're upset, it makes me feel like ... Or I've been quiet lately, and the truth is I'm hurt, I'm confused, and I'm trying to sort things out ... Or acknowledge the other person's feelings. That's another option for us. It validates their feelings, and it helps to create a safe space.
Dr. Knight is on.
And then the final thing I want you to do is to suggest some next steps. If a problem or issue is addressed, you need to present options for solutions. I'm done with this. Communicating after the silent treatment, that's sensitive ground. So I want you to keep that communication simple and don't press too hard. You've got to be ready to listen and not just talk. You got to avoid sarcasm, and you may have to be patient during this process of getting back to your baseline. The silent treatment happens, but you can survive it. That's the good news today. Please take these tips, these nuggets, and apply them to your life, and be like Santita, own the fact that you can often use silent treatment in your relationship.
I'm not crazy. I told you that. I told you. But you know what? I'm not silent as much as I emotionally shut down. I just...
Understood.
You know,
that's real.
And then when I'm done, I'm done. I'm done. Yep. And but that's crazy, because it's like, let me drink the poison and I'm going to expect you to pass out. That's crazy. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, y'all.
Yeah.
As what does that great sage Rodney King said, can't we all just get along?
Get along.
As you heard people rioting behind him, you heard the fire trucks and police cars. And all those years later, that is what lives on. Because really, at the end of the day, that's what it is. I mean, I say that as I look at my parents who've been together 62 years. 62 years. I see your parents. Your parents have been married how long? They've been married as long as I've been living.
44 years.
Longer, I mean, almost that long. But I've known your parents all my life. And, there's something to be said for people who endure. And I think we need to start having some conversations with people who not just make it, who endure, who become better people because of their partnerships with other people. So, that's something for us to talk about. Friday, and Dr. Knighton, you stay right there because I'm going to talk to you for 5 minutes on the other side of the break because I have some questions about these pre-pandemic habits, Pastor Thurston, that she said we need to leave behind. She knows she's as persnickety and crazy as you. You need to be an infection preventionist too. So tell me real quick, when can we see you on Facebook? And do you know what you're talking about this week?
Friday, 3 p.m. I'm going to be talking about moving from your ex to your next. 3 p.m. Facebook Live, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. My page, just put my name in, Stephen with a PH, Stephen Thurston.
From your ex to your next. You know what? That sounds so unholy. But this is who we are. But you know what? There's always something else coming down the pike, everybody. Dr. Shanina Knighton, how you doing? Dr. Knighton, you still there?
Yes, I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, doing great. Stay right there. We're going to get you for 5 minutes on the other side of the break as we talk about the pre-pandemic habits that we've got to leave behind. The pandemic emergency, the COVID emergency has ended, which means the monies and the help that you were getting from the government, well, that's ending. But COVID is still here. RSV is still here. Measles, mumps, all kinds of things are still here. And part of Dr. Knighton's mission, this infection preventionist, hey, Dr. Nina, that's her handle on social media, has been for us to normalize health, she said. We're normal. We've normalized sickness, but what about health? And what about you being the CEO of your health? Let's talk about that on the Santita Jackson Show. And then Brandon Johnson, this administration. What do you think? Oh, Susan Garner says she's ready for her next. That's Facebook Live. Reverend Stephen Thurston with a PH on Friday. You don't want to miss it. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. What next with this pandemic? What habits do we need to leave behind, everybody? Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Thank you, Pastor Thurston. That is hilarious. You're next. He is just a mess. But how are you, Dr. Knighton?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
Girl, I'm doing fine. Okay, let me then just pull a couple of other things down. Okay. 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 Oh, who do we have here?
Jeanette Wilson.
Hey, Reverend Wilson, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing great. I have Dr. Shanina Knighton here. We got to get her in because we need to talk about normalizing wellness. We really, really do. And we need to talk about infection prevention. That's a real... And she and I are really going to be talking about hygiene poverty and maternal mortality. So we need to... I would love to get you involved in that conversation. Dr. Knighton, this is the head of our Push for Excellence program, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Esquire. Reverend Wilson.
Yes, ma'am.
I need you to speak with Dr. Knighton. She has an issue that I think you can help her with, even retroactively, Dr. Knighton. So I'm going to send you her number.
Okay.
Dr. Knighton?
I said okay.
I'm going to join you up by text.
Okay. That'll work.
Okay. I'll put myself on it. Just. Oh, boy.
We also need to talk about this idea that these automobile manufacturers are deciding not to include AM radios in their cars, which will impact black radio.
Absolutely, it's going to take it out.
Yep.
And they've been planning to do that for quite
Attorney
some time.
Connolly's on.
Attorney Connolly, how you doing? Aaron?
Mr. Brown has not answered. I'll continue to call.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing great. is it Melody Serna or Serna? I'm going to have her on at 7. She's going to be joining from the American Indian. Goodness gracious. American Indian Center of Chicago. I thought her remarks were excellent. It was just interesting watching her get shouted down, but been there, done that. It's not even anything to. But we've got to talk more about our indigenous brothers and sisters. We really, really do. So everybody stay right there. Have you either of you heard about this, the Chicago cops racist social media posts that were detailed in this new report? Have you all heard about that?
I have not.
Okay, I'll send you and Aaron the story, because we need to talk about that, I think. Methinks. Okay, so let me move this. Oh!
10 seconds.
Get a sense of all this stuff that I carry with me all the time.
Stand by, please.
Thank you, honey, even from one side of my place to the next. Oh.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, Dr. Shanina Knighton. As we talk about Mayor Brandon Johnson and this new administration, of course, John Nichols wants to talk about that too, the national correspondent for The Nation magazine. Everybody's talking about it. Indeed, he went in yesterday signing 4 executive orders. We're going to be talking about that and talking about the inauguration that really looked like Chicago, right? And we're growing. It was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. We all walked away very, very inspired. And the election itself is over. And as Mayor Lori Lightfoot said, now you are watching a peaceful transfer of power. And the audience erupted in applause, because that's really what it's supposed to look like. Before we get to Aaron Connolly and Reverend Jeanette Wilson and Melody Serna of the American Indian Institute here in Chicago, the American Indian Center of Chicago, and then we're going to try and reach out to G2 Brown and others, Kevin Lampe, and John Nichols a little bit later on. Dr. Knighton couldn't get her on the other side of the break, ran a little long, had to ask Pastor Thurston about going from your ex to your next, which is what he's going to be talking about on Facebook on Friday. Dr. Knighton, I keep up, I study, not just read, but I study your social media post. Hey, Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA. That's right. Jewel's already posted it. We love Jewel. We appreciate Jewel just getting us tight on social media. But tell me, what pre-pandemic habits do you feel we need to leave behind? Or that we're resistant to leaving behind? However you want to tackle it is fine with me.
So for one, I would say a pre-pandemic
You have a caller.
of knowing that you're sick and going to work sick, or going to social events, knowing that you are under the weather, and essentially you're showing up not realizing that you're putting others at risk because you don't understand that the viral particles from, let's say, a common cold, if you had strep or just anything like that, you're putting others at risk just by being around them because, in your opinion, because you're wearing your mask, because you are sick, or because you need to make money, or you want to be at the social event because it's one of a kind, the fact that we're putting others at risk. And so for me, one of the big habits that I think I would leave behind is just assuming that it's okay to go out in the public, being ill, knowing that you can transmit it to others. And this is something that I have seen comment. It's like people have gone back to it. I'll be somewhere and they're like, oh, yeah, I got this mask on because I'm still fighting the cold. Well, you should probably be at home instead of being out exposing somebody, because we know that people still mishandle, masks inappropriately. Another habit that I would absolutely leave in 2020, leaving 2021, leaving in 2022 and 2023, and that's just normalizing illness. And so if anything did occur, I spoke with a significant amount of people that said that they had less illnesses during the pandemic than what it is that they have now. But when we start thinking about what was going on during that time, whether kids weren't able to go to school, whether it was people staying at home, there was less traffic, thus meaning less risk for you to increase your risk of being contaminated with germs. Now the problem is because schools have gone back to non-infection prevention and control practices. You have businesses that, understand that hand sanitizer is an expense, so they no longer put it at the kiosk or the registers within stores. So we needed to leave all of the habits back in I'm going to say 2020, of where we need these materials in stores or out in public because we are also connected. And you see how easy it was for someone to pick up, let's say, COVID. If someone's in the daycare, how fast RSV spreads in the daycare. Droplets are droplets. They are thick droplets. We want to keep our droplets to ourselves. And if you know that you are draining or something isn't right, think through what are the protective measures that I need to put in place, because I recognize that I may be putting someone else at risk if I'm still keeping up with same habits of normalizing illness and normalizing the fact that it's okay to be around others when I'm ill. That is never okay, because you never understand the unintended consequences.
Well, one more before you go. You said blowing out the candles on the cake? Well, I'm going to need a blow dryer for my cake anyway this year because I got a big birthday. That having been said, what? Yes, it's going to be plugged into the wall, and I'm going to have my cake near the wall so we can all them candles. But blowing out the candles on the cake? Really?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You can have candles on the cake and you can wave them away. You can wave them to not be dry, but I guarantee, or it'll be a pretty cake and you can blow it out because it is your birthday. But just know that nobody may touch that cake.
Oh, wow.
So it is something that has absolutely changed. And think about it, Santita, people spit talk.
Oh, I hate that. Oh.
Like people, but when people talk, they have fluids that are spewing from their mouths. And so if that is the case, you have to ask yourself, am I putting myself at risk? So there's a lot of habits you need to leave behind. I'm also seeing all of these overwhelming reports coming out saying masks don't work. But I still find it interesting that nobody's talking about the fact that literally 80-90% of people that wear masks wear them incorrectly or handle them incorrectly. So, of course, they're not going to work if they're being inappropriately used.
I see more people that, what'd you say, the chin girdles? Oh, it drives me nuts. But the chin girdles. The nose is open. I'm like, what are you covering? Oh, goodness gracious.
Exactly. And I get frustrated when I've been seeing, the latest news lines, conclusion is masks don't work. Conclusion is this. And like I tell anybody, it only works if you do.
And that is Dr. Shanina Knighton, everybody. Hey, Dr. Nina, I'm telling you, go follow her on social media. You will love it. And she will make you think. And like I said, she's going to make me pull out my blow dryer so I can blow out the candles on my cake. I have a lot of candles. Anyway, but now I'm like, you know what? You're right. I don't want to put my droplets all over the cake and then, ooh, here, eat a piece. No, everybody. We have to think differently. Dr. Shanina Knighton, can't wait to be with you tomorrow. We've got to continue our discussion on hygiene poverty, on homelessness and its impact upon infection spread, and how we can prevent infection. Sending you so much love, Dr. Shanina Knighton. Let me go to Pam. Pam has called. Pam from the West Side. You must be feeling mighty some kind of way this morning.
You, Santita, girl, you just don't know.
Yes, I do.
The audience, you all just don't know how much pride I'm feeling. What this means, not only for the West Side, for the South Side, for the people. Power to the people, Santita, and you know what I mean, because that comes, just power to the people. Mm-hmm. So let me say prideful. Also, let me just quickly comment on COVID. Santita, I still wear my mask everywhere I go. And I don't know if it's a thing, if it's a phobia now that you don't want to remove your mask. But I'm really still skeptical because even though we're vaccinated, but now if you talk about contacting COVID and then the long-term or long-haul effects of COVID, I'm always concerned about that. And then I'm in close contact with my mother as well, and she's having some heart issues. So just quickly, I wanted to say I'm still wearing my mask, and so I don't know if that's a thing with other people as well.
It depends upon where I am. On an airplane, yes.
In public spaces, absolutely. Okay.
Well, I didn't wear it at the inauguration yesterday, but you know what I have done, and this is something that a portion that I got from Dr. Knighton, working on improving my baseline health, making sure that I am as healthy as I can be. Because if you're not, that's COVID meets you where you live. It's a snitch. That's what Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams said. It meets you where you live. Wherever you're vulnerable in terms of your health, that is where COVID can get you. So please, everybody, fruit, vegetables, take care of yourself. That's my takeaway. But your thoughts about the inauguration yesterday? I'm hearing you. I'm saying all these things, you need layers of protection. Remember? Dr. Deborah Verholden said this is a Swiss cheese model. We need this layer, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. So what about the inauguration? What do you think about this administration? What do you want, and what are you willing to do to help him to achieve our goals?
Well, I campaigned for Mayor Johnson, just from the beginning, and what he said is, "I will always tell you the truth." I'm holding him to that. Always tell the truth. Communicate with the people. And it has to go beyond corporate media, Santita. He has to come to the people and tell us what his administration is doing. So first and foremost, equity. Santita, if we're supposed to have as black people contractors or black people doing business with the city, if it's 30%, you find a way to get it to 30%. Equity. So that we full employment for our youth. Not only from the city government, but these business partners. What are these corporations and businesses doing to hire youth? You take care of those issues, that will help bring down Santita in his speech. I heard him say, look, they tried to keep a brother with a payment plan out of the office. I love that, Santita, because I don't know about your audience, but I've been on a payment plan.
Me too.
And so...
but that's why I jumped out at people, not because of me, but just because I said, wait a minute, you're telling me you only want affluent people to run for office? People, just come on, give me a break. In fact, I'd rather have someone who has struggled with some bills, who has to say, you know what, I need to pay more on this bill this month, and look, I've done it. And I'm like, no. Oh, wait a minute, I got an unexpected medical bill. I got an unexpected bill. Okay, no, let me pay this down because I don't want to mess up my credit. All those things. And so I loved it, And
you're not going to make me embarrassed because you're not going to embarrass me or shame me with that.
I'm shame-proof.
Thank you. Oh, Santita. Hey.
Shame-proof.
He's fully invested with his children in the CPS, in the Chicago Public School System.
Mm-hmm.
So I expect there to be some things done with the just with the curriculum, the day-to-day things in the system that impact the education of our students. I expect that. I expect us to also push him what we need to do. I want to open up city council. I want to see some of the city council meetings in the evening because everybody can't make a morning meeting.
Hold that thought. No, stay right there. I want you to.
I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. I put you on the panel just now. Let me ask you about. Yeah, I know. Pam's like, what girl? All that talking you doing with your great ideas? You just sit tight right there. Just be right. Stay right there.
Sure.
I mean, Reverend Wilson and Attorney Aaron Connolly. What about city council meetings in the evening when people get off work? How many of us can really afford to go to these city council meetings during the day? Just briefly, Reverend Wilson, and briefly you, Attorney Connolly. Well, I mean, I think that's a great idea.
Oh, I think definitely we should do that. When I was at Chicago Public Schools, they used to have the meetings during the morning where people at work and could not attend the meetings. And so when we said you need to take it not only into the neighborhoods, we got 77 communities in Chicago. They should be in the evening. You would see a different kind of police protection when the mayor shows up at a neighborhood meeting for the city council. I think absolutely should be in the evening, and they need to move it downtown, out of the downtown area, because it's costly to go downtown to any meeting. If you have to park, if you have to get there, it's a lot. And so he could look at the 4 regions of the city and take that meeting out quarterly so that people can be engaged and see what's happening to their government. We pay everybody's salary. We ought to be able to access them. Absolutely.
Attorney Erin Connolly, your thoughts?
Well, that's actually one of the things we heard a lot in this election going door to door is I don't feel that my city council, that my alderperson, that my mayor, that my voice can be accessible because I'm working 9 to 5 or 9 to 8 or getting the kids to school and trying to balance a lot, right? These are real families who do want to say, like, I want to be more involved. I'd like to have my voice heard. But, you know, for advocates in this space, when we're even trying to get folks who are living in our city on the far south and west side to want to make their voice heard in city government, you know, sometimes it takes them 45 minutes, 3 buses, right? Like it's a process to take that step to participate, especially given the time constraints. You're taking off work, you're foregoing a salary. Working class people should have more access to city government. And I believe it with the co-governance model that Mayor Johnson is already putting into place. I mean, we saw evidence of his collaboration and a new style of engagement even yesterday on his first day. So I'm very hopeful that this will be a big part of what his team is going to focus on, and I think they understand the value in it. But working families in the city of Chicago should be able to participate and advocate for themselves, whether that's at city council, whether that's at town hall meetings that are accessible. And honestly, our folks with disabilities, right? They're limited already by COVID restrictions being limited. It's more difficult for those folks to participate in the process as well. So I think outreach in the neighborhoods, making virtual testimony and local connection with your alderperson, developing those relationships and having it not, you know, just be a one-time complaint about garbage cans, that you really get to know your community and have a voice. I think the Johnson administration is focused on that, and I think bringing a team to the table that understands community organizing, that respects people, that wants to serve, I think goes a long way at the start of this.
Well, you know, he signed 4 executive orders, Pam, and 3 of them established new deputy mayor positions. But he is looking at migrants and their issues. He's looking at youth. He wants to boost youth employment. He's looking for resources to help our youth. What do you think about that? Pam, you still there?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I'm
now,
in
Pam, if you're going to be
support
part of the
all
panel, you got to jump on in, girl. Come on.
I'm in support of all of this, Santita. And I think a little nuance they missed with Mayor Johnson. He said, in addition to youth employment and providing services, opening up the parks and resources, you know what he told the youth? He said, now, when I do these things, you all got to cut it out. That's what he said. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that, because there should be an ask of our young people. I think Mayor Johnson, and I know he's inundated with a whole lot, he might have to go to some local areas and tell the youth, hey, I'm going to invest in you, but you all have to cut it out.
But Pam, you don't ask them, you instruct them. Okay?
Well,
our children need...
What I'm saying, I'm saying, you know how we think. You have an ask of people.
When you look at his wife and his children's behavior, they are instructed. They are being raised. You can see that. So we need to stop playing with these kids and, oh, you have an option. No, you don't have an option. My parents are like, you can do right or you can do right. Next.
But he's also talked about when his children were a bit rebellious too.
No, all children are rebellious. All I'm saying to you is,
Santita, I'm just saying ask only in the sense
I know.
that we
I'm making another point. I'm extending on your point.
Okay.
You know, my point is, because what's not popular now, Pam and Attorney Connolly and Reverend Wilson, is, we give and, people feel entitled and, I'm blessed and I'm highly favored. Yeah, you are. But, the way is straight and narrow. When are you going to do right? You mean to tell me you're supposed to get all this bounty and there is no expectation of you? No. No. No, and he is absolutely right. He sounds like a dad. Like, no, I'm not going to reward you for bad behavior now. I'm going to look for these resources for you. I'm going to find this for you. But you have got to show up to work on time, and you need to be appropriate, and you need to follow instructions. Because I'm helping you. You're not helping me. Pam.
And I want to help you.
Yes. Of course I want to help you. But you know what? And that having been said, I have some requirements of you.
Yes.
But 1 minute for you, and then I'm going to, a minute to everybody else, and we're going to pivot to the break. What's on, Pam? So what do you want him to do? I mean, are you heartened by the fact that he's looking to boost youth employment, that he wants to deal with immigrants and migrants and refugee rights? I mean, community safety? I mean, he went in looking for that. And he's looking to promote, to really help to boost our wages and earnings and on and on and on and on. What do you think about that? It's like he went in looking to give us help where we need it most.
To increase minimum wage. He is looking for ways to get resources to the people in the most expeditious way possible. Because we don't have a lot of time to mess around because people are hurting. He also talks about being food insecure, right? Mm-hmm. The housing. Now, the issue with immigrants, migrants, or undocumented workers, mm-hmm. he's going to really have to delve into that issue because as our communities, they're taking buildings and housing people, mm-hmm. there is a real potential for that to be a powder keg. And because we as Black people feel that when people come into the community, they don't join us, they overtake us. So that's a sensibility that I believe Mayor Johnson has. And it's going to take some real effort on the ground.
Ooh, Pam, what happened?
Sorry, she dropped.
Okay, Pam just dropped. But, just what do you make of these executive orders so far, Reverend Wilson, and you, about a minute and a half for you, and then a minute and a half for Attorney Connolly. Reverend Wilson?
Well, I think it's a good beginning. At least he recognizes he has the power of the pen. He doesn't have to wait for the city council to approve everything. And he started out with his primary focus, which were youth, migrants, and he's already appointed an interim superintendent who comes out of the police department. I think he's off to a good start. He has a lot of things that he faces, and so I thought it was very good that he laid out a vision yesterday for the city, which really is planting the seed that it's not his job alone, it's all of us that have to work together to rebuild Chicago. And oftentimes many mayors felt it was their burden to bear alone. And so I think that he's going to be more inclusive. It's going to be a challenge because he has a very new council, so that can be a positive and a negative for him.
Well, I think, as Pam said, it's people power. I mean, and let me pivot to you, Attorney Aaron Connolly. I mean, really, his election is an expression of people power, people resisting the corporate media and their established narrative and saying, no. This is not just about crime. This is about migrants. This is about my wages, my retirement benefits, and on. I mean, this is about so much. 1 minute, Attorney Connolly.
Well, and the people power broke through the classic political rhetoric that has been, a consistent character in the Chicago political system. We said, no, this is nonsense. You close mental health clinics. You're closing schools. We need those things back. This is a person that gets that has their children in Chicago public schools, that taught there, that has collaborated, that has been in county government. And we're going to do this together. And what I saw yesterday and what I heard last night at the People's Ball, right, which really was a people celebration. And it looked different than it has in years past, and it felt different. And I believe that there really is a shot to finally engage the whole city. I believe Mayor Johnson can bring the two cities of Chicago together, and that we'll be stronger for it. And people are motivated to show up and do the work, and that's going to be the exciting part to watch. So I'm really excited for what's next.
I am too. I mean, and the great part is we have to grow up in our politics and our form of governance, and really understand that the government only operates with your permission. So you've got to get involved. We've got to, as Reverend Wilson said, we have 77 communities in Chicago. We need the city council and the mayor to be in these communities and in all 50 wards, 4 quadrants of the city, having city council meetings. You need to see how this works. You need to know. Bring it on home to us. Wow, Sam Cooke did say that. Bring it on home to me. That's right. Bring the government home to you so you can see. Have the meetings at 6 and 7 o'clock. Yeah, so that you can get there. Because for those people who work one job, or you might be able to come in between jobs. Because many people are, working 2 and 3 jobs just to come up with a decent salary. So there's just a lot that we need to be talking about. So I want to hear your thoughts, everybody. John Nichols will be on at the bottom of the next hour. He's excited up in Wisconsin. People all around the country are excited about Brandon Johnson. But what about you? The New Yorker magazine said he's the unlikeliest mayor. He went from protest to politics. Is that really unlikely, though? Call me at 773-763-9278. July 15th through the 19th, People Power, Rainbow Push International Conference. You don't want to miss it. RainbowPush.org, 773-FREEDOM. Call, get involved. It's your convention, everybody. Speaking of the people. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. You all keep on talking. We're on Facebook Live now.
Well, I think one of the things we really need to look at is how do we take the city and work the city for the benefit of the people. We've elected people. I had an alderman that only came to my block when he felt he was about to lose his seat. And I told him, I said, you can't do that. You've done nothing. You never walk and see us. You never have meetings where you can hear us. So, we don't need you to be our alderman. You have to go because you're not focused on us. You took a job, you negotiate these big box people to come into our ward. You don't talk to us about what we are looking for in terms of these economic centers and neighborhoods. You don't look at how our parks and our community fail to engage our young people. So we have to decide to be the people that want our communities to work for us and for our children. And you can't do that if you're not engaged, you're not involved. And I think that Mayor Johnson gives us an opportunity to learn how to engage ourselves in the politics where we live.
Well, let me acknowledge Susan Garner. She's in L.A. She said, I'm excited about him out here. I'm mad at you. So is Carol Soskin out there in the hills of Beverly. Jewel in New York. This has been very exciting for people all over the country. When you think about him announcing last year, when he had 1 to 2% name recognition, and he went, Miss
Cerna's on.
Miss Cerna? Melody?
Yes, ma'am.
How are you? Hey, girl.
I'm
so glad I bumped into her coming out of the as we were trying to leave the inauguration, I saw you. I said, look, I got to give this girl a hug because I'm feeling what you were saying yesterday, talking about our indigenous brothers and sisters. I was feeling that because my mother wanted to know who you were when I went by their home to see them. She said,
"Oh, that's great."
She said, "Who was that? And what were those people saying?" And you don't want to get my mother fired up, really.
So, well, I wanted to meet her because she just wrecked. I mean, she did a rant. I'm like, oh my goodness.
You lost. And I've got Reverend Jeanette Wilson. She's the head of our Push for Excellence program at Rainbow Push. We need to get more of our indigenous children involved in that program, Melody. So we need there's some work that we need to do.
And what you don't know.
Oh, okay. And wait a minute, I want to introduce you to Erin Connolly as well. Erin Connolly, she's part of Push, and she does a lot of work. You might know Erin already, but Erin's with us too. But we want
Mr. Lampy's on.
And Kevin Lampy. There we go. Well, you know, we have a party over here, Melody. Party. Ooh. But I'm sorry. What were you about to say, Jeanette?
I wanted to say that Kathy revealed
still no answer from Mr. Brown.
Virtual African American history curriculum, but it's also a Native American curriculum that we're going to be sharing. And so I really want to talk with her about that as we begin to teach our children multicultural history, Latino history, and African American, all of our contributions to America.
Right, and as we tour these colleges, Melody, we and our children should know each other. You know, I went to Whitney Young. I was part of Whitney Young's first full graduating class. We were part of the first class that got there as freshmen, and went, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. And one of the reasons that I was ambitious to go there was because it was the top school here and in the state, and I wanted to compete. Right. But my mother said the great thing about Whitney Young is she said you will be in class with everybody, and you're going to get to know everybody, and that is what's important. She said because you are a citizen of the world. And so you had kids who were children of migrants and immigrants who were smart as hell, and this was their shot.
Oh, me?
Hey, wait a minute. My parents' first home was in a project in Greensboro, North Carolina. Okay. Yeah. So I don't come from that. My parents' my parents really became comfortable when I was an adult. I mean, my mother told me
my kids too, to be fair. Yeah. I know what that is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not mad about it.
No, for sure. Like, I think for me, I had that upbringing too, right? Like, I went to, public schools. I was at Lincoln Park. So, I was at a good school. You have to, but yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time, I said, I'm proud of who I am because I'm a commodities kid. I grew up on government commodities. I grew up, in Albany Park, when it was very immigrant based, right? It wasn't, what it is now. And, I took the train, I went to school. My mom wanted me to go to a Native American boarding school, so I did that for a little bit.
Okay.
I went to Riverside Indian School in Oklahoma because she felt she didn't want me to lose my culture. And so I went to Riverside Indian School, and I hated it. I'll be honest, I hated it. I was away from my home, I was away from my friends, I was away from the concrete reservation that I knew and that I loved, and it was not the same. And, I come from a family
1 minute.
of boarding school survivors, and their experience was much different than my experience. And it was just something that I didn't know how to grasp with that. So I came back home. I ended up going to an alternative high school, and, I graduated and I went to the military. I served in the Navy, but looking at it now, like as a mom, I feel the same way, right? My kids do have
30 seconds.
So they're half Colombian as well. And so thinking about what I did and how I raised them and how do I keep my children in two cultures and be respective of two cultures.
Hold that thought.
But my kids have only...
No, hold that thought. Because
10 seconds.
That's where we need to talk to you, to have a discussion, Jeanette, about HBCUs,
Stand by.
black colleges, stand by, and all of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we all need to be able to hold on, stand by.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Tuesday, May 16th, 2023. It is a joy to be with you today on the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And I want you to meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's the only page where I can accept friends, everybody. Facebook is kicking everybody else off on the Santita Jackson page. So leave that behind. Tell everybody to come to Santita Jackson and Friends. And please, please, please like and subscribe at the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Facebook reached out to me because of the traffic that I get, and they said they want all of you to go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. So please do that. And at Santita J is my Twitter handle. At Santita J is my Twitter handle. I've got a couple of another one. Let me not misspeak. Well, let me not speak ahead. But I do have a new sponsor, everybody, Make It Financial. You do not have to have high net worth in order to have a financial planner. That's right, someone with whom you consult about your paycheck. Absolutely. And so Ron Whittingham and the good folks at Megan Financial, you'll be hearing directly from them because they want to teach you about financial literacy. And with Americans having now $17 trillion worth of debt, we need to know how to handle our money. We need to know how that it is possible to build toward a comfortable retirement. But you have to have people who understand money and how it works in order for you to make that happen. It works when you work it, everybody. Make It Financial, they have built their business on helping middle class and working class and even poor people plan for retirement and plan your finances, everybody. Some financial advisors are only interested in you if they can get a big fee from you. That is not what they do. They work with unions, they work with working class people, they work with middle class people, they work with people who have very small paychecks. They're true advisors, providing a roadmap for a dignified and comfortable retirement and a way for you to live in a dignified and comfortable way right now in your working years. So I want you, regardless of your financial situation, or your income. And everybody's in some kind of situation. You heard the mayor yesterday say, hey, don't get mad at me because I was on a payment plan. Hey, it happens to everybody. 708-444-1090 is their number. 708-444-1090, that is their number. You need to get them involved in your life, everybody. So let's get to some of these headlines. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 77 degrees today. 77 degrees as we talk about Mayor Brandon Johnson and what he's bringing and what happened there yesterday, particularly with Melody Cerna. We want to talk about what's the voice of our indigenous brothers and sisters. She's executive director of the American Indian Center in Chicago. We're going to speak with her in just a few minutes. In the NBA, well, June 1st is when we kick off the finals. Oh my gosh. Will the Lakers be in it or will it be the Nuggets? The Heat and the Celtics will be playing tonight. And oh boy, this is just, well, the Lakers and the Nuggets will be playing tonight. The Heat and the Celtics will be playing tomorrow night. Who's going to be in the finals? I can't believe the Warriors are not there. I'm just still trying to get over that, everybody. The Stars, well, they beat the Kraken, so they will be looking to get that Stanley Cup. Oh, will they get it? Or will the Golden Knights? We do not know, but we will see. Special counsel John Durham released his final report on Monday, in which he cast doubt about the FBI's decision to launch a full investigation into connections between Donald Trump, his campaign, and Russia during the 2016 election. In the 300-plus page report, the Trump administration appointee determined that the FBI also used, quote, raw, unanalyzed and uncorroborated intelligence, close quote, to launch the investigation, but used a different standard when weighing concerns about alleged election interference regarding Hillary Clinton's campaign. The teenage gunman who killed 3 people and wounded 6 others in Farmington, New Mexico on Monday appeared to target victims randomly and used at least 3 guns in the attack, including an AR-15 style rifle. 18-year-old gunman roamed the neighborhood and randomly fired at whoever struck his fancy. Wow. Who is he and what is his background, everybody? Gas is almost $1 cheaper than a year ago when prices were racing toward $5 a gallon. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen reaffirmed yesterday that it's likely the U.S. could default on its debt as early as June 1st. And she said, quote, "We have learned from past debt limit impasses that waiting until the last minute, that is June 1st, to suspend or increase the debt limit can cause serious harm to business and consumer confidence, raise short-term borrowing costs for taxpayers, and negatively impact the credit rating of the United States." Remember, we had our credit rating lowered more than 4,000 days ago, and it has not been raised. Think about that, everybody. It's been more than 10 years. Hi, I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to welcome Kevin Lampe to the show. I'm not welcoming him here. He's home, and we're so glad that he is here. And we, of course, have got Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Esquire, from Rainbow Push. Really, she's head of the Push for Excellence program. And attorney Aaron Connolly, Rainbow Push. We got to take some of you to Aaron Connolly. And, of course, she is a political consultant and pundit. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. We welcome someone new to the family today, and she is part of the family for sure. Melody Cerna, Executive Director of the American Indian Center of Chicago. I don't know about you, but I was so moved, Reverend Wilson and Kevin Lampe and Attorney Connolly, by what she had to say. It was a history lesson, and it was so heartfelt. And first of all, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Sending you so much love, Melody. Thank you for taking my text. Was it 11:30 last night because I fell asleep? Ooh. I just said, oh my gosh. I said, she's going to hate me, but I'm going to try. Okay. I'm a producer in my heart. And in fact, so talk to me. What you participated and, you had your say. You were one of the main speakers at this inauguration. What did you say?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thanks for having me this morning. And just thank you for the pleasure of being able to share space with all of you fabulous people this morning.
You are more than welcome. And now you're a member of the family, so you just, you got to come back all the time.
There you go. So I was reached out to by the mayor's office, to talk about a land acknowledgement. I will be perfectly honest. Land acknowledgements are not my favorite thing to do, only because they tend to be very performative. And in the almost 3 years that I've been at the American Indian Center, I look at land acknowledgements actually as a way to have accountability and equitable action items for folks that are asking things of Native people on Native land. And so I really wanted to design this land acknowledgement and have this land acknowledgement so both me and my staff, we worked on this land acknowledgement about what does that look like for us, but what would that also mean as a transition to the mayor, and how, listening to all of the progressive movements and the things that he wants, how do we share in space that history, but also that realization, right? That accountability of how did Chicago become Chicago? Like, how did we get here? And, I think it was a beautiful transition into the many speakers that followed me, and then right into, his oath of office, and then into his phenomenal speech about progressive change and what he wants. And I think what's beautiful is that, Native people by nature, we're humanists. We look at everybody on our medicine wheel, right? There's, black and white and yellow and red, and we cover everybody. We speak about everybody. When we talk about our relatives, we talk about everyone. And I think that's who we are. That's ingrained in who our blood memory and our DNA, that's how we are. Despite settler colonialism. And I think it was a beautiful opportunity to really educate, but also to say that we need to be on a united front, and that we need to collectively work together to move forward in healing all of those things that has happened to a lot of our marginalized communities. And how do we do that in a way where we also aren't playing the oppression Olympics, right? Well, this happened to my people, but this happened to my people. And a lot of people I feel in our community, not just the Native community, right, but the communities of color, I think we tend to do that to one another. And I think it's a disservice to one another. So I think my hope is kind of like Brandon's, right? Is that I'm looking to figure out how can we unite people? How can I continue to teach and educate, but how can I uplift and give space and voice to my people as well in this larger diaspora of this place that we call home in Chicago?
Well, what is a land acknowledgement?
So a land acknowledgement, they became this trendy way for people to acknowledge the land in which that they are on. So and several people have used them differently. They've become very trendy over the last maybe 5 to 10 years. More so now, it's almost a backwards thought, right? So you're saying, thank you, and I appreciate and acknowledge the land in which I'm on. Also, I'm not giving it back, but I just wanted to tell you thanks, but I'm also not going to do anything for you. So they become very performative. And so it's like saying, sorry,
New caller.
Sorry, but I'm here and it's yours, but you can't have it back, but I'm going to use it and thanks anyway. So that's kind of the general sense of what they are. A lot of non-Native folks started asking for them because I think it made them feel better about not giving lands back or, doing the right thing for Native people. And I think some people look at them as, oh, they're honoring us and they're honoring our land. And it's funny, I have friends that, are tribal, right? They live on reservations, they live within their nations. And they're like, what the heck is a land acknowledgement? They're like, do you need somebody to tell me that I was on this land and it's my land? Like, it's more of an urban thing that people are asking for, and it's usually larger corporations. It's foundations who have given us, money. People want land acknowledgments because they want to feel good because they checked off a box because they may have funded an organization or they used the land and they want to say sorry, not sorry. That's basically what they are. But if we want to look at them as an honoring space, you can only honor and acknowledge something that you're willing to work on. So I think for me, I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I have and a bonus baby, so I have 4 kids. And I have children with special needs, and I always tell them I don't reward bad behavior. So for me, it's like, if you're asking me for something, I need you to give me something in return. What does that look like, for an organization that wants me to pour emotional labor into this statement that you're asking me for, because what you're asking is to re-trigger harms and traumas just for you to feel better to stand on the land that was already mine, that I have to now go and tell you, yes, it's no longer mine, you can use it. Like, it's very trauma triggering, and I don't know if people really understand what historical trauma is or really how that works, or why those things can become what they are.
I think, Black Americans do. But it's something that's very difficult for us.
Sure.
Oh, no. And you weren't, you were not saying the opposite. I think it's just very hard for us to wrap our arms around it. I think the Jewish community have done an excellent job. You study trauma when you go to Israel. I mean, they have institutes for that.
Yeah.
And they acknowledge that. Now, what you don't want to do is, just like you said, it's a tricky line you got to cross, that you have to walk. Kevin Lampy, and I want to open the conversation up to everybody, but before I pivot to everyone, I want to ask you what it is that you want, because I can only imagine. I remember we had, assembly when we were growing up, and I'm older than you, and we had an indigenous speaker. She was a beautiful woman, and she came in her tribal dress, and it was just fabulous. And she said, first, I want to let you know that you are standing on my homeland. So I welcome you to Chicago. And I was like 7 or 8 when I heard this, but it stayed with me all those years ago, right? And because of the way I had been taught, because of my own parents, that was not anything that was offensive to me. I was like, she's right. My mother got me clear on Columbus real quick, like when I was 5.
Yeah.
And so I just, what is it that you that you need, not just want, but what do you need to have happen? We saw the Supreme Court decision about Oklahoma, and of course, as soon as they, gave almost half the land back, my mother said they are going to take that back. But at least this is on the books. So talk to me. What do you want going forward? I mean, as you have a mayor who's talking about inclusion and let's get this right. He's a teacher. It's like, you can't tell lies in history. You got to tell the truth. What is it that the indigenous community, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need us to know? What do you need us to do?
Well, when we talk about the us, I guess, as a whole, what we need are more seats at the table, right? Mm-hmm. We can't change and shift the dynamic of where my community is without having an actual voice at that table. What we need is to be included in those things that are education, that are economic development, that are in, city, local, state, government offices and jobs. We want people to recognize that we are still here. Like I said yesterday, we're your neighbors, we're your coworkers, we're, your students, we're here. And I think this mayor has given me so much hope about where he wants to move in this progressive moment. And I think we're on this beautiful precipice of watching these marginalized communities really get a voice. And so I think for me, I'm optimistically hopeful about where Brandon Johnson's going to go. We have a lot to heal in all of our communities of color. For my community specifically, there's a lot of lateral violence that happens in our community. There's a lot of trauma that we deal with. But I think, the beauty in who we are, too, is that we like to teach as well. We are teachers. That's just who we are. I think we love to teach. I think that we love to include. I think that we are people that, we believe in things like restorative justice. We believe in things like love and compassion for all of our people. And I think there is this beautiful way that we're going to be able to, kind of paint our ribbon into this landscape of where we are in Chicago right now. But that is going to come. It's going to come with funding. It's going to come with seats at the table. It's going to come with effective and accountable action items of what that really means for the city as well. And I was very proud to hear that he's already working with the business and philanthropic arms about how he's going to start funding some of these smaller nonprofits and smaller agencies that are really doing that grassroots work for their communities. And I think I'm excited.
Well, and I'm glad that you're here today because we don't hear enough from the indigenous community. We give a lot of lip service. Well, not a lot. We give a little bit. And that's why, when I saw you, I said, no, I want you on tomorrow morning. And I meant it. And this is not the end of it. Kevin Lampe, your thoughts?
This is one of the right steps that the new mayor is taking by realizing that this city is the incredible reflection of our country. And there's so many different aspects to life in this country, and there's so many different people that bring different talents to the table. And by being inclusive, and I know we harken back a lot to, and I see this again from him and what Mayor Harold Washington did, reaching out to every single part of the city and every single person in the city and every single neighborhood in the city. And if we can bring everyone together and not divide ourselves into camps, but to find a common table to sit around and solve our problems together, that's going to help, and that's going to create the solutions, I think, that are actually going to work.
Reverend Wilson, it sounds like we are in league with our indigenous brothers and sisters. Right? I mean, we're looking for the same things. Although I think their needs, quite frankly, are even more profound because we are on their land. And we need to acknowledge that. Not just acknowledge it, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do? We've never lived up to a treaty, Reverend Wilson. That's why I was shocked when Justice Gorsuch ruled as he did in that Supreme Court case. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, you're going to... Wait a minute, they need to get the land back.
Is, they took the land from the Native Americans. They made us work the land for free.
No,
And
unpaid.
then promised us.
Yeah, we were paid.
Okay, unpaid. And then promised us reparations that we never received. And so in both cases, there was a taking without repair. There was a taking without restoration. And so to tell me to say, yes, it was my land and I don't mind you taking it from me, is insane. So we do need to work together to look at how do we repair the harm that was done and continues to be done centuries later.
You know, and then how...
You know, a plot of land when I owned all of it.
Well, she was talking about something that you and Kevin Lampe and Aaron Connolly have talked about, city contracts. You know, state contracts, county contracts. I mean, Melody. It's just like, I don't hear...
Up the process.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't hear the indigenous community being chewed up for those contracts. I mean, Boeing is basically an arm of the government because they get just federal contracts. They make money hand over fist.
Right.
The last minute belongs to you, Melody.
Well, I guess what I'll say really quickly is that Chicago's a little bit different, you know, and maybe we should have kind of led with this a little bit. Sorry. But Chicago's one of the first cities in the 1950s Relocation Act for Native Americans, for the American Indian Relocation Act by the government. What's happened is that Chicago falls into a state with no federally or state recognized tribes, which then turned us into a nonprofit because that was the only way that we can gather. So essentially, we're responsible for over 200,000 natives in the state of Illinois with no land, no recognition, and that's got to come from our government. That has to come in the form of, hey, you know what? We're going to give you this land so you can build a center that's actually equitable and treats your rights, that treats your people. We have people that are spread in all 50 wards in the city. And if there's anything, we would love to be able to have a neighborhood to call our own. And we don't have that. We have the entire city of Chicago.
And you need a neighborhood. And you need colleges.
We've never really had that.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, right? And I think everybody on this call can admit, you know, when you have community, when you have your neighborhood, it builds beautiful things. Mm-hmm. You can create beautiful things when you are in fellowship and living and in partnership with your people. And when you can't do that, it also creates this tension and division of, oh, well, they think they're too good, or they're too poor, or they're too this, or they live too far. And you create that tension that they've already had to face and go through living on reservations, being moved off of land, coming to a city with the promise of a new life. And they didn't get that either.
Hold that thought.
You know, they ended up with...
Hold that thought. Be right back. On the Santita Jackson Show, talking with Melody Cerna and this panel about what Chicago ought to be, what America ought to be. That's how we can make it truly great. Back in just a minute. Melody, we're on Facebook Live. Why don't you finish saying what you continue on? I'm not trying to stop you.
Oh, that's fine. I think, you know, when we talk about who we are, right, as these urban natives, and, you know, I think another, you know, real big fact that I think most people don't understand is that 70% of Native people live off of reservation. Off reservation, not on reservation, off reservation. And of those 70%, about 58% of them live in cities. We live in actual urban cities. So this huge population that we now have seen since the 2020, you know, census is, you know, Illinois has grown its population in Native folks. You know, we have our kids, my kids voted for the first time in this cycle. You know, they were able to vote post-COVID. I mean, I have a 18, 19, and 20-year-old that got to vote, and they were excited about being able to have that civic responsibility. And what does that mean for them to be children of color, but to have that vote? What does that mean to have your voice and I think not be marginalized in this larger population? And I think
Mr. Nichols is on.
One of the things I say a lot is, you know, urban natives are the double asterisk at the bottom of the page in the back of the book. That's a footnote. And then they'll talk about Native people, or they'll in philanthropy, they'll just check a box, or they'll say, we don't have a silo for that for Natives. I was like, but do you have a silo for youth? Do you have it for elders? Do you have it for social services? Mm-hmm. It puts us always in this disenfranchised place. And I tell people, I can talk to you about my history all day long, but I'm looking at healing. I want to talk about our resilience. I want to talk about, yes, we have had all these things. There isn't a treaty that anyone honored. I don't think there is anyone that doesn't know that. And if they don't, well, then they really need to pick up a history book, because even history books even say that we didn't, fulfill treaties. But I think where we really are trying to go is, for me as a leader in this community, I feel I can talk about history and I will give history and I will do what is asked. But really what I want to celebrate is our resiliency. I want to celebrate our community. I want to celebrate our stories. I want to celebrate our youth and their development and their accomplishments. I want funders and city agencies and other communities of color to say, hey, look, this may have happened to this particular set of people, but you know what? Look at what they've done and look at where we are. And we are far, far, far from where we need to be. But I am proud of where we are and where we are going to continue to go, because we are resilient people and we are a proud people and we are a humble people. And that, I think, is what has kept us where we are, holding space, within the larger, population of this, this place that we call home.
Melody Cerna, everybody, Executive Director of the American Indian Center of Chicago. I want to introduce you, Melody. If you don't know him already, you should, and you all should know each other. John Nichols, national correspondent for The Nation magazine. He and Bernie Sanders have a bestseller of a book right now. She's someone you need to know, John Nichols. She gave a tremendous, what a compelling speech she gave at the inauguration yesterday of Brandon Johnson. And I was so moved. I was hoping that I would see her, and as lo and behold, as we were walking out, thank you so much, Alex, I saw her. And I said, I got to have you on, because we don't hear enough from the indigenous community. And, when I hear you, Melody, you sound like Black people. And when you're looking for schools, when you're looking for affirmation, that's why I went to Howard and not Harvard. My father said leadership is bred in majority environments.
Stand by.
Be clear on that. Stand by.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. You know what time it is. It's time for John Nichols on the Santita Jackson Show, bottom of the hour. But we've been talking with this tremendous panel, Attorney Aaron Connolly, Kevin Lampe, brilliant political strategist and political consultant, both of them. And of course, Attorney Reverend Jeanette Wilson, she's Reverend, but she's Esquire still. And of course, she is also a pastor, and she's the head of the Push for Excellence program at Rainbow Push. And we've got John Nichols, but we've been talking with Melody Cerna. I mean, there's something about Melody's story that is so compelling. She's the head of the American Indian Center of Chicago. And my mother often says, until we make things right with the indigenous community, nothing's going to be right. They're the first aggrieved people here. And so hearing your testimony, and I'd like to give, before we pivot to you, John, I mean, Aaron, you've been awfully quiet.
Well, I'm just really taking all of this in because it's such an important part of my family and my life. A majority of my household are members of an indigenous community. They're members of the Cherokee Nation, and we talk a lot about the things we discussed today, the complexities of land acknowledgement and trauma. And frankly, if there is an ask like that, it should come with some reparations, and in my opinion as well, right? There has to be a repair. And when we look at the issue in the city and the state of Illinois, I think it needs to be a center of our conversation. And I'm hopeful that the Johnson administration is elevating voices like Melody's and like many others to fully represent that full rainbow coalition that voted for him and will continue to hold him accountable, right? I think that's the beauty of this, is there is a respectful and level of accountability, and we have to be having these difficult conversations.
You know, and we have a responsibility to do that here, which is why I invited you here, Melody, in the hopes that you would connect with John Nichols and with Reverend Wilson and Attorney Connolly and Kevin Lampy, because we do need to know each other's stories. And I hear you, because your voice has not been amplified. But when I hear your story, it's, you know, whenever people have lived under the boot, I mean, it's my story. You know, I mean, you know, Black parents look for Black schools to send their children to so they can be affirmed. That's why your family said, okay, you know, an indigenous boarding school, because I'm trying to get you affirmed. I don't want you to lose this, because when you lose this, you lose yourself. As we bring John Nichols into this discussion, I mean, you're talking because I wanted to know what is it that you need. And Susan Garner is sending you much love today, as is Jean Hanton, and all my morning stars are sending you much love, because we love your voice. And I loved what you said yesterday. I was listening to everything, even as you were interrupted. But like my father said, if she wasn't doing something great, she wouldn't have been interrupted. So let's keep on going, Melody. I mean, what do you want people to know? And don't even address that. Let's talk about what you want us to know and where it is that you need to go.
Again, thank you again for having me on and really, you know, having my voice be heard. You know, I try to tell people the work that I do is bigger than me. It's a very humbling job, you know, and I try to be good as I can be for speaking for my community. Because I don't speak for all Natives, right? Mm-hmm. I'm very clear in that conversation that I don't speak for all Native people, but I speak for the community in which I serve. Mm-hmm. As a Native woman, you know, as a woman of color, I'm also, you know, a Latina as well. And so I don't speak for all people. So I need that to be very, very clear when I talk about what I believe my community needs and the community I serve needs. And really, like I said before, in order to amplify a voice, you have to have seats at the table. You can't say that I want Native people. You can throw millions of dollars at funding at a community, but if you have no investment in that community, dollars are just dollars. And honestly, they're not even sustainable dollars. They're not. In order to have sustainable, equitable, you know, futuristic goals and what you want at the table, those are actual seats. You can't say, we can't tell our children, I want you to go out into the world. You know, and my daughter said something very profound to me when she was on her way to college. I'm actually with her right now, to be fair. After I left, I went to the airport I walked my daughter to her first day of classes at college. And I said, well, I'll make sure that I'm there to walk you to your last class of your freshman year. So I'm sitting on the beautiful campus of Cornell University, which ironically is the largest university in the country of Native land grab. It's pretty ironic that I'm sitting on the same campus. But I'm sitting here this morning, you know, with my daughter and thinking about, you know, I told her go out and reach for the stars. We can't tell our children to keep reaching for the stars. And she said, I said, man, I finally did it. I got you out, right? That was my mentality. How do I get my daughter out? How do I get my children out? How do we tell our children and our youth and our communities, you need to go out? But my daughter said, well, you've done that. She said, but you're not done. You've only just started. And I said, what does that mean? And she looked at me, she goes, well, you paved the way out, but now it's your responsibility to pave it back in. And I sat with that profound statement. I thought to myself, you know, if my daughter graduated college tomorrow, is there a place for her to actually come back in the community and work? Or would I have to create that space? And I think that's the point, is that we are paving all of these ways out for our children, but we're not paving them to come back into these communities and to really do the work in these urban settings. And it's, again, I speak about urban Native people and what our needs are, because our needs are different from those of our relatives on the reservations. Mm-hmm. We are sitting in these large, you know, concrete reservations where we share them with everyone. And that's great and that's beautiful. but it becomes a little less beautiful when you no longer are recognized as one of those people in this large landscape of things. And it becomes even more marginalized. When it was your lands, and to be perfectly fair, I'm Anishinaabe, so I actually belong to the Council of the Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi, who actually, these are their homelands traditionally. And so for me, I have a tie to the lands. My family, my kids have ties to these lands, and so I want my kids to come home. I want my daughter's, she's studying public policy and government, minoring in Native American Indigenous Studies. I want her to come back and work in city government, state government. I want her to work in Congress. I want her to change the policies of how people continue to look at who we are. My son's in the Marine Corps. I have another son with special needs who wants to be a zoologist. My 8-year-old doesn't even know what he wants to do yet, but he knows that he's Native all day, every day. And he is in the 3rd grade having to tell his classmates who he is. He wears his ribbon shirts to school. He sneaks his hand drum into school. That little boy is full of so much love and wants to just educate everybody on who he is. And we are one of the only races in this country that has to literally give, quote unquote, Native 101 to explain who we are, for people to really even understand that concept of all we're asking for is some reciprocity. All we're asking for is to hold space and to be able to tell our stories and still live our lives. We want those same jobs. We want to be educated at the same level. We want those opportunities. We want to be funded like non-Native nonprofits are being funded. Black and Native nonprofits are funded at less than 4% of all philanthropic funds. Period, point blank. And what's even scarier is the Native, population. It's 2% of philanthropic funds filter into Native American communities, especially those that are in urban spaces. And of that 2%, 0.6% of that is actually gone to genuine Native organizations, not non-Native led organizations that have Native people work there, and not non-Native people holding a Native project also receiving that money, counting it as Native. We're not giving money back. We don't give land back. We're not giving money back, and we're not giving space back. And those are the 3 things that I think our community needs to really continue to thrive at a level that we can be, I don't want to say in competition, but, in this place and space of, hey, look at that. We could see more Native representation if the Native representation was at the table. We have to start holding our governments, our communities included, accountable that, hey, these people are still here and we're not just some, token item, somewhere, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I mean, John Nichols, when you heard, because I was there, Attorney Aaron Connolly was there, Kevin Lampy, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, we were all there. And obviously, Melody Cerna spoke. The anticipation in the air is what I heard in her speech. Finally, someone, it takes, I'm being acknowledged. And we've got to make things right if we're going to move forward. Because it seems like our greatest fears are now upon us. John Nichols. If we want to be biblical about it, because that's really what it is. And we've got to get things right, John. So these 4 executive orders that the mayor signed, he's looking at migrants, workers' rights, immigrant rights, and he's gone right to the least of these immediately. Mm-hmm. His first order of business.
And that was why he was elected. Remember, this is the heart and soul.
Reverend Wilson is off.
This is what the whole rainbow concept was always about. And that is that you build a coalition that is as broad and as real as the city or the state or the nation you seek to lead. And that's what Brandon Johnson did. That's what your father tried to do in the 1980s. It is the historic mission. And when you come to power, it is very challenging, because in building that rainbow, you have invited everyone to the table, right? You've said, I need you in order to win. I can't become the mayor, the governor, the president without you. And so it is a very humble act, right? It is a request. But suddenly, when you're in power, right, then your great challenge is to bring that humble ask into governance itself, right? To bring the rainbow as a whole into the governing position, into the governing place. That's not easy because there are so many pressures, so many stresses. There's the day-to-day, right? There is, you have to get up in the morning, and if you're the mayor of one of the largest cities in America, you're going to have literally 100 calls. Your chief of staff will have 1,000 calls. Everyone pulling in every direction. And the interesting thing is that traditional white male power knows how to make those calls, right? It has always had those entryways and those avenues. And so there is such a pressure for status quo, right? Even if you have someone elected on a rainbow promise, even if you have a visionary progressive, they're going to be very quickly buffeted with demands and requests to do things the way they have always been done. That is why Brandon Johnson's inauguration ceremony, swearing in, was such a powerful and important moment, because in that moment, right, when he's coming to power, he sought to amplify the voices of the rainbow. And what we're talking about today is, one of many aspects of that amplification. It is vital that that continue not just through yesterday, but into today and all the days going forward. That's going to be very challenging. And what it's going to mean is that all those groups, all those individuals that are part of the rainbow have to, in solidarity, do exactly what you're doing today, Santita, and that is keep amplifying, keep pushing those voices forward, keep making sure that they are heard, not just by the community, but by Brandon Johnson himself. I think Brandon Johnson's a good man. I think he's a remarkable figure. It is amazing and truly a blessing that he is the mayor of Chicago. I have great, great regard for him and for what he's accomplished. But for him to do all that his campaign promised, for him to make real all of those hopes, right? He's going to need pressure. And it's not a cruel pressure. It's not a angry pressure. It is a pressure to remember the rainbow, to remember what brought him to this place, and to govern in a different and better way. So when that call comes from the CEO or the banker or the very powerful person, maybe you say, yeah, I'll get to you in just a moment. But I've got a call from somebody who actually got me elected, and I want to take their call first. And then I'll come back to you. And you know what I may do? I may, after I've talked to that person, that group, those people that got me elected, I may come back to you, Mr. Banker, Ms. CEO, and I may say to you, here's something we need you to do, right? Here's how we begin to close these circles. It's going to be a remarkable thing. I am looking at Chicago with great excitement. I'm looking at a bunch of other cities across the country. This is a transformative moment. We are seeing rainbow coalitions come to power, not just in Chicago, but in places across this country. This is a transformative election year. And my hope, obviously, is that in each of these cities, we see a governance that is different and better than what we saw before, one that is more real, that respects and regards indigenous peoples of that place and of all other places, that regards immigrants, that regards people of color, that regards those without wealth, that regards those who work for a living, that get up before dawn, come home after dark, ride the bus, don't come in a limousine, but walk to work. All of these people. And if that happens in Chicago, if that happens in Philadelphia, if that happens in all the cities that will have elections this year, then I promise you, America can be a very different place, and much more quickly than we imagined, because change comes from the cities. It doesn't come from Washington. Washington is designed to be slow and dysfunctional, and it proves it every day. But cities, great cities like Chicago, they can lead.
So, I mean, you've seen the pushback against the progressive prosecutors in particular. You saw the pushback against Bill de Blasio, in New York. You saw the police literally turn their backs on him, and the police threatened rebellion here. So, how do you govern through all of that?
Well, it's very hard. Look, I mean, Aaron said just a moment ago, you have to have these difficult conversations, right? The conversations aren't really difficult. They're very healthy. They're very redeeming. They're very renewing. They're refreshing. It's wonderful to talk about a city that understands and recognizes and extends racial and social and economic justice. That's a beautiful thing to do. Environmental justice, to do peacemaking at the local level. These are beautiful, good things, and so these conversations aren't difficult. Except, and this is why Aaron's right, of course. Except that power, traditional power, tries to make it difficult, right? It tries to steer us away from saying, Brandon Johnson was elected to do something different. He was elected to do something better, right? And then you have power say, oh, no. He was elected, but now we want him to do things the way that they were done. That's a push and a pull. Brandon Johnson's going to face that with the city council. He's going to face that with the downtown business community. He's going to face that with the funders and the philanthropists. And all the people are going to say, why don't you just cut a few corners here? Why don't you just kind of go back to this traditional way of doing it, to the way that it was done under Rahm Emanuel, to the way that it was done under previous mayors. And for Johnson, he will be made strong if he continues in the spirit of his inauguration, if he continues in the spirit of his campaign. One of the things that's often said is that a new mayor has to get down to business, right? They've got to, stop campaigning and start sitting in that, fifth floor office or wherever and, really, go over the books, go over the budget. Of course, that's a part of the job. But I don't believe that any good mayor ever stops campaigning. Yeah. I think a good mayor, great mayor, keeps campaigning, keeps going out to the people, shows up at every night and really rallies the people and rallies them to support what they want, right? This is the big thing. Franklin Roosevelt, an imperfect president in so many ways, but good in this one great sense. When A. Philip Randolph came to him and said, look, we've got to integrate the defense industries. We've got to begin to integrate our economy. Roosevelt historically is said to have responded, that sounds good. I agree with you. Go out and make me do it, i.e., keep the pressure on me. A great mayor, great governor, great president values that and goes out and seeks that. And so I will tell you that I believe Brandon Johnson knows this, and I believe that he will be a successful mayor because he will keep campaigning. He will keep crusading, if you will, out in the community, asking the community to pressure him, asking the community to support him where it's possible, so that you have a counterbalance to all that pressure from economic power, from status quo, economic and political forces. It's doable, but it is not easy. And it is vital through that, in this period, in this moment. This is the defining moment. The first days of a new mayoralty are the defining moment. This is the time when Brandon Johnson needs to control and guide and advance those conversations, those difficult conversations. He needs to make them as redeeming and refreshing and as positive as they can be, to keep spinning out that vision of a great united city that understands all of its diversity, that supports people in who they are, and that in those wonderful terms we just heard from your guest, that it helps people to get out, to find the roads out, but then also helps them to find the roads back in so that they can complete the circle, that people can do well for their own communities, and in so doing, do well for the whole of the city. And this is possible. This is not beyond the realm of possibility, but it is difficult. Harold Washington showed us, A, that it can be done, but B, that it isn't easy. And I think, as I've said to you many times before, Brandon Johnson is the continuation of Harold Washington's mayoralty. Harold Washington's mayoralty ended too soon. So much promise, so much possibility. Brandon Johnson picks up that thread, and I think he can take us or take Chicago to a new place. And I think in doing so, he can inspire Philadelphia, which is voting today for a mayor,
Kentucky,
to do great things. In the state of Kentucky, that's voting on a governorship today. This is a big election day today. I mean, our media doesn't cover politics very well, but this is a big election day, and we ought to be looking all over the country and saying, we got a Brandon Johnson in Chicago. We want the equivalent in Philadelphia. We want the equivalent in Louisville. We want the equivalent across this country, because this country needs to change, and why not let Chicago lead that change?
You know, I've got about a minute left here, literally, Kevin Lampe, one of the top political advisors in the country. What do you want him to do? What should he do for the optics? And really, not just, substance is important, absolutely, but what people think you're doing is so important. Kevin Lampe, 1 minute.
He needs to be always communicating to the community, whether that's through earned media, through the mainstream media, and through social media, constantly finding opportunities where he is in a dialogue with people in the city, a dialogue with the other elected officials, with the city council. He needs to be out there. He needs to be accessible to everybody, and keep working on his agenda each and every day, but also tell us the challenges, tell us how he's meeting those challenges today.
Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I am going to get some closing thoughts from this magnificent panel, Aaron. You better give me something, girly girl. We got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do, everybody. We have who we want. Now we need to get what we need. And even if you did not vote for Brandon Johnson, he's the mayor. So now let's all work together and make Chicago great. It's a city of big shoulders, great shoulders, not slump shoulders. Let's keep it going, everybody. Thank you, Alex, for a great show. Sending you all much love today, everybody. God bless you. Lord willing, I'll see you tomorrow. July 15th to the 19th, Rainbow Push International Conference. Can't wait to see you there. Love you. God bless. I want to get closing thoughts from everyone, but I just felt that it was so important that we heard this. I mean, to me, the indigenous voices are the most marginalized. The most marginalized of voices. Even as we look at the boardings, the tragedies in the boarding schools, it's like that story, Melody's been shut down. How are you going to find tens of thousands of dead children? We're not having we need to be talking about this all the time. So, and we need to talk about the trauma, which is something that we are loath to do. So just moving forward, how do you plan to work with the mayor, or what do you plan to do to rally just the community, and not just, the community who want you to speak, the part of the community that wants you to speak for them, but the fact is, if we open our minds and our hearts to it, you connect to all of us in one way or another. What's next, Melody? What do you see?
Well, my hope is that this administration doesn't just see that speech as a speech. And my hope is that that administration reaches out to me and my organization so that we can build out a plan for what that looks like for, communities of color, especially my community. What does that look like moving forward? I think we're sitting on a hope and a prayer, because that's, to be perfectly fair and completely transparently honest, that's all we've ever had, is a hope and a prayer that somebody would give us that time and that space. We were allotted that space, but I hope that in that space, it didn't end there. I hope the price of using this Rainbow Coalition to vote him into office didn't end with one Native American speaking at his inaugural. That's my hope. My hope is that you open the doors, that he opens those doors and has these very hard, very real conversations about how we move forward together as a community and what that looks like to be equitable Chicagoans for all.
Kevin Lampe, let me pivot back to you, John. What do you recommend that she do to keep this community at the top of the agenda? Just certainly in the line of vision.
Well, I think she said it well, which is you're now looking for that call. And it is the duty of a newly elected mayor, newly elected government, to reach out to the communities that elected it, to reach out to the whole of that coalition. One of the mistakes that new mayors make and that new governors and even presidents make is that when they get to power, they say, oh, I want to reach out to the people that didn't vote for me, right? I want to try and, bring them in and make sure that this is an easy tenure, right? That I don't have people opposing me. So big pressure to reach out to everybody who criticized or threatened, et cetera, along the way. That's important, and that has to be done. But sometimes in doing that, a new mayor will forget to reach out to the people that elected him or her, right? And will forget to, kind of keep those lines of communication going to say, hey, I'm here in this place of power now. What are the things that you need from me immediately? How can we start doing things? And then how can we start, how can you counsel me on staffing, on filling all these jobs? How can you counsel me on budgeting and assigning all this money? How can you counsel me when you've got a problem on how to have rapid response? That is on the mayor, right? And that is on the mayor's very large staff to make that happen. If the call does not come, and often it doesn't, if the call does not come, then it is very vital to, in a reasonable amount of time, not a long amount of time, it is very vital to make your own call and say, hey, just want to make sure now that you're in this place of power that you're aware of what we need. The ideal situation, of course, is to have the mayor reach out. If the mayor does not reach out, right, then it becomes necessary for all those aspects of the Rainbow Coalition, all these communities, all these groups, to signal what they need, and to do so, do so very pleasantly, right, very comfortably, very easily, unless you're not heard. And if you're not heard, right, then it becomes necessary to apply the pressure as loudly and as well as can be done. And the last thing I'll say on this is that in these defining moments for a new administration, that the vital thing is solidarity, right? It is so vital that groups that are part of a rainbow, right, part of this coalition, have the back of other groups, right? So that when the Black community is reaching out, that other communities of color and labor and other groups are there with them. When the indigenous, the Native communities, when they're reaching out, that they have other communities of color, labor, the churches, others with them. And so nobody has to stand alone, right? If you've got to make your ask of power, even if it is friendly power, even if it's power that you think will respond, if you've got to make that ask, you shouldn't have to do so on your own. You should do so as part of that Rainbow Coalition, right, with people backing you up. If that happens, right, if your call is backed up by a call from someone else who says, yeah, you ought to listen to this person, you ought to listen to this community, then Mayor Johnson, who again I believe is a good man, I believe will hear it and respond to it. And this is the key thing now, to be heard and to get a response. And it's possible, but it is harder if you're doing it on your own. It becomes much easier and much more real if it's done as part of a coalition.
And so you're saying that we have an obligation to speak for each other.
And to listen to each other. Mm-hmm. This is to hear what people need, because we don't know it. No individual, none of us knows what everybody else needs, right? There's got to be a listening that goes on. And then once we have heard, right, then you are exactly right. To speak for one another, to stand in solidarity for one another, sometimes to stand there silently, but to be behind the person that is speaking, so that when that person speaks, the mayor, the governor, the president, whoever, sees not just that individual, but sees a whole wall, right? Sees a whole bunch of people there who are saying, listen to this person, listen to this message, because, 400, 500 years of denial, 400, 500 years of oppression, 400, 500 years of failure. I mean, it's got to end at some point, and let it end now. Let it end at this point, and let us all be saying, this is the pivot point. Let's take hold of our destiny and say the future begins today.
Aaron, are you still there? Aaron might have had to take her children off. Kevin Lampy, your thoughts? I mean, because everyone's so excited, and I want us to continue to fuel that excitement. I don't want people to drop.
Well, now's the time. You can't paint in poetry, and you're governed in prose, and so now is the time too that those of us who are citizens of the city of Chicago, we also need to participate. We need to show up. We need to be talking to our aldermen. We need to be talking in the ward offices. We need to be working through our NGOs that we're affiliated with. We need to be pushing each agenda we have that we know that can make this city run even more efficiently and be an opportunity land for everybody. And so that's it's important for the citizens to actually participate. Go to your local CAPS meeting. Go to your neighborhood association meeting. Go to your block club meeting. Read everything that you can find about what's happening, and then offer your input to your elected officials. Because when elected officials are getting that input, that'll only make them better, and it'll only make our city better. I know it's not a little Pollyanna, but that's where I am.
Well, Melody, we've got our work cut out for us. And I say us because we're going to have to work together, period. We can't leave it all on the stage. Yeah. So, just know that you're part of the family here. And if there's an issue that you want amplified, that you want discussed, and I'm going to call you about all issues, because I think you want to weigh in on Clarence Thomas. You must. You want to weigh in on, oh yeah, you got to. You want to weigh in on NASCAR coming to Chicago, right? We got to weigh in, and we really have to affirm each other. This is something, John met him 1,000 years ago. He was on Reverend's first campaign when we were both kids. And what we did learn, Reverend said, all of you are right, and you got a patch. I'm, of course, not saying it as eloquently as he said, but your patch isn't big enough. We've got to sew our patches together and come up with a great American quilt. And then we'll all have cover. And that's really what it's going to have to come down to. So I just want you to know that you spoke to me, John. When I heard her speech yesterday, it just spoke to me. And I said, I'll do everything I can with this platform, not only to let you speak, but begging your pardon to speak for you or certainly about you. You have that as my pledge and promise.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate. Like I said, I think it's been said very eloquently, right? We can't do anything alone, and I don't think we're built as human beings to do that. Mm-hmm. Especially in these marginalized communities. Again, we could talk about all of our sad stories, but I think the beauty is in the progression. The beauty is in the resiliency, and the beauty is in our futures. Mm-hmm. And that's the conversation I want to be a part of, and that's the work that I want to do is doing beautiful, work with all of my relatives. And so that's my pledge to you, and I appreciate just the space and the time.
Well, you have got it, and that's where we have to really be with one another. You've got it, and you've got it here. Your closing thought, John Nichols.
Well, my closing thought is it's all been well said today, and what a remarkable conversation. This is why this show matters, right? Because you bring people, sometimes folks you've just met, right, or people that you've come into contact with in recent days, and bring them here and give them this platform, this space in which to talk. And we are introduced to one another, right? We make connections to one another. This should happen in Chicago, as it does today, and in the days going forward. That's how you build that coalition and make things happen. But then we ought to talk to the folks who were voting in Philadelphia today and hope that they too get a mayor who can lead them in this brilliant rainbow visionary direction. And we hope that the voters in Kentucky who are voting today, that they will make choices that really are for the future, not the past. So many of these states, so many of these places wrestling between past, present, and future. And, this is not a terrible time. And this is not a perfect time. This is the time that we've been given to try and make the fundamental changes that are necessary. Like the golden age isn't behind us and it isn't ahead of us. The golden age is in us. It's right now. This is when we should build the future. And what I would say to the folks, all the folks who we're talking with today is should have an urgency about that. Should have an excitement about it. It can be a joyous moment, right? But it will only be an urgent, exciting, and joyous moment if we are in coalition making demands for all the aspects of Brandon Johnson's platform, right? Everything he was elected to do, we now must say, let's do it. Don't be angry. Don't say do it. Why didn't you do it? Right? Don't be that way, right? Because this is just the beginning. What we should be saying is, let's do it, right? Let's with smiles on our faces, hope in our hearts, let's believe that this can be the transformative moment. And if it isn't, then yes, we will rally, we will march, we will make our demands, as we have had to do so many times in the past. But let us believe now that if we do it right, this can be different than anything that came before. This can be better. And Chicago, city of, broad shoulders, of great shoulders, that Chicago can be, the North Star. That Chicago can be the city that the rest of the country looks to and says, hold it. They're doing it right. Let's do it the way they're doing it.
Well, you're right, Kevin Lampe, but look at what happened to Kim Foxx here in Chicago. I mean, these police came after her and they never stopped. The police have come after Brandon Johnson and they've never stopped. Listen to a police officer yesterday just privately say, I'm heartened by the fact that he has tapped someone, at least temporarily, to oversee the department who's an inside guy. Didn't leave town to make that happen. I mean, what's next? What's the way forward? I mean, because we see Kim Foxx said, look, I've done what I can do. I'm out. Marilyn Mosby, she got gotten in Baltimore on foolishness. Not her foolishness, but on just they wanted her out. It happened in San Francisco. These progressives get in, and they are pulled into office on a progressive agenda, and then the establishment comes after them. I don't know why we don't expect that to happen. I mean, that's why I was asking you about optics, because there's no one better at it than you and Kitty Kurth. How do we sustain the excitement and the hope? How do we keep that alive, Kevin?
Well, it does go back to communicating every day. It is, and also to listening and to hearing from each sector of our community, and being able to respond to what their needs are and understanding. I think there's too many times for most elected officials, they spend so much more time talking than they do listening. And then once they listen, then they need to act upon what they're hearing. And I think that is the key. When an elected official can go out there in public and be able to give their message, but then listen to the message of the public, and then take the message they receive from the public, and then go out there and say, okay, these are the things we need to do. These are the adjustments we need to make. This is how we need to make government work for you. I think that's when we start to get onto the area and get onto the right path.
Well, everybody, there's a lot to do. Melody, you want to add anything before we go?
No, I think this has been a beautiful conversation, and I look forward to additional conversations to really have. And I think everybody's in agreement that we're all in the same place. I think we all have hope, and we genuinely believe in where this progressive administration is going to go. And now we're just waiting to see what those action item steps look like. I think there isn't any more that we can really say until it starts to get done. But I think we do have a responsibility to one another to not just hold him accountable, but uplift him in this work that is going to be difficult, and uplift one another in order to help him do this work to move forward.
Well, I'm up for it. I hope that you all are, everybody. You have who you want, and I get what you need. That's what you need to do. And you vetted him. He was at 1 or 2% name recognition a year ago. So you got to know him, and when you got to know him, you said, no, I'm going to vote for him. We did the same thing 4 years ago with Lori Lightfoot. But she ran into a buzzsaw called COVID, and I would say sexism, and I would say, homophobia. She ran into a whole lot, but she ran one heck of a race, and I applaud her. Let the work continue, everybody. Let us climb higher and higher and higher. Let's grow up in our politics. Let's start loving each other. That's not a suggestion in the Bible. It's a commandment. That's what you're supposed to do. And when we love each other, we'll respect each other. Might not always like each other, and that's okay. But we'll respect and appreciate each other, and we'll affirm each other. Let's do that, everybody. All you need is love. Bum, ba, 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 bum. All you need is love. Love, love. Love is all we need. Love is the answer. Light of the world, shine on me. Oh boy, love is the answer. It really is, everybody. I love you. God bless you. I can't wait to be with you tomorrow, God willing. Melody, thank you for honoring us with your presence. Now I've welcomed you the first time. Now you'll be a regular. I'm done with that. Kevin Lampy, John Nichols, who's with us every Tuesday. We're so grateful for your support, really. It means so much to me. And are you and Bernie Sanders on tour with this book?
A little bit. We've did some very large events in San Jose and Tucson. We've got some other events coming up as we move into June, and it's about one a month. I wish I could tell you we were going out every day. It would be a blessing and a wonderful thing to do it. I enjoy doing things with the senator, but he has got to govern. Yeah. And he's chairing the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, and there's a lot of power with that committee. I think he's using it very well, but with power comes the responsibility to pay a lot of attention to your duties. And so we'll be out with the book. And I'm trying to convince him that we should come to Chicago and do an event with Brandon Johnson, who, to our great delight, was in a bookstore not long ago and had a picture taken with a copy of the book, which we couldn't ask for a better endorsement than that of the mayor of Chicago. Now I'm hoping we'll come to Chicago and do an event there. Maybe we'll do it with the Rainbow. You
should do it. Let's do it. Come on, let's do it.
Yeah.
You're like 2 charter members of the Rainbow. Hey, come on, let's do it. Let's do it.
Well, and the senator has appeared many times with Reverend Jackson and with folks from the Rainbow, so it's not beyond the realm of possibility.
No, it's not. It absolutely ought not be. I mean, please, he ran the campaigns. So there you have it. There you have it. And took some physical abuse for it, too. Bless his heart. We just love Senator Bernie Sanders. Oh, my goodness. I love you. And I love you, and you. I love you, Melody. I love you, Kevin. I love all of my guests who had to leave today, but it's been a wonderful show, and everybody appreciated it. Thank you, Jewel. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Susan out in L.A., and hey, John Cunningham and Myrick and Max Myrick and all of you. Nicole, sending you all so much love. What'd you say? This show uses its platform to inform, not judge. That's why I pass it on. Thank you so much. It's not my job to judge. I have, we make judgments. I just don't want to be judgmental. I mean, because, selfishly, I'd have to condemn myself because I've changed my mind about a lot of things. You evolve. And then you can change back to where you were originally, but you do it with more information. This is really what this is supposed to be. I want you to be informed, and I want you to make up your own minds. I really do. So I love you all. I don't want to use the platform. I want God to use it. That's all I want to do before I get out of here. That's all I want to do. I love you all. I will see you tomorrow, God willing, on the Santita Jackson Show. God bless you. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Love you, John. Love you, Melody. Love you, Kevin.
Love you too.